Hey everybody, Brandon here from the Vancouver Pubs and Oko. And here we have another short workshop that I thought that we could work on today. I'm working on a few different Okos for a couple different projects. And I've gotten to the point sort of in the assembly line where I'm going to be working on the arms. So I thought that this would be a good opportunity to record sort of the process of how I create these and show that off. Because, hand rods are such an important element to puppetry that I thought that it would warrant its own little workshop. So I thought it'd be something I could kind of show off. So yeah, so today's workshop is just going to be all about puppet arms, hands, and hand rods. So let's take a look at how we make these. Alright, so here's some of the basic materials that we're going to need in order to do the hands that I like to do for my puppets. I'll show how we do the arms later, but we're going to start with the hands because that's the more complicated part. So I have some sleeves here that I've already sewn up, and basically when I'm sewing up an Oko hand, I sew all the way around and I leave a little part open here. There's a little pocket here on the side of the hand, opposite from the thumb, that I leave open. That's probably, well, let's see here, it's like it's about 4 inches. And that's the little pocket that the hand that we're going to be making is going to be slipped into. And I'll show the arms at the end of this video. We'll start with the hands and then move to the arms. All right, so those we'll just put aside now, and we'll work on the inside. And to make a hand, we're going to need two pieces of foam for each hand. And then there's going to be a little pocket here. This is the pocket that I make of some orange fabric. And you can see it just nice and snugly holds the hand rod here. Hand rod will go into there like that, nice and snug. I'm also going to be showing how we make the hand rods later in the video as well. And then we're also going to need some little bits of vinyl for the palm. And that's something that's kind of important because that's what's going to be used in order to hold the pocket that the hand rod's going to go in. So I'll show this as we go along, but I just wanted to show you that's what we need. This is an important tool that you're going to want to invest in if you're going to want to make puppets. This is, I don't even know if it has an actual proper name. I guess it's sort of a fingerboard. Pardon, sorry about the noise outside. They're doing construction. So this is a fingerboard hand for Oko that I've used many, many times. And basically, it's the actual hand traced out. And then there's these nails in strategic points. And this is what we're going to use to bend the wire around. And that's how we're going to make the hand. And that's the first step. So that's what we're going to get into right away and make the wire part of the hand before we get to these other pieces. So this is a nice soft metal. This is, I can't remember. I didn't keep the, I'm not quite sure. This one, I'm not sure what this metal is. So I'm going to start by just creating like a little loop here that's sort of being held on to in the middle. Like that, a little loop. And then we'll go here, and I'll go around once, around the palm. Yeah, just like that. And then I'm going to go like this. So up and around here, around the nail that's at the tip of the finger, and then over. This is very soft wire, even though it's a thicker gauge, so I can't remember what type of metal it is, though. All right, and then we're going to go around a few more times of the hand here. We're almost done. I'll get my... Cut that off there. There we are, and that will be looped around. All right, so there we go. So there's our first hand, and now what I'm going to do is I've cut up a whole bunch of these little strips of duct tape. So I'm going to start to take this carefully off of the nails, and I'm going to use the duct tape to sort of hold the wires together at certain points. Put that there. Yeah, it helps to pre-cut these duct tape pieces. You definitely want to have the wires being held in between the fingers. That's kind of important. So make sure you do that. And I'm going to make sure that I'm not warping this out of the shape of the hand. I think down here by the thumb, I'm going to secure it here and here. All right, that's pretty good. Looks like the thumb got pushed down a little bit, but that's okay. Let's just see. Should be okay. All right. I think another thing that I'm going to do is twist the fingers so that they become more like this. If you're using thicker gauge wire, you might want to use pliers for this. Make sure that the fingers are still going the right direction. And the thumb. All right, there we go. There's our first Oko hand. Let's see how that sort of looks on the foam. It's a little big. Let's squeeze it a little bit. That's the nice thing about, yeah, it's sort of malleable. It's sort of, yeah, you can kind of like shape things a little bit. Just gonna pinch the fingers a little more tighter. All right, that looks pretty good. If it's a little off, it's okay. The foam will kind of like wrap around. But I think that this is sort of looking pretty good. All right. So I'm going to do that now for the rest of the hands, for all the ones that I need to do. And then we'll be ready for the next step, which is going to be to attach a palm here. All right, so I'm working on 4 of these. So here's a couple of them. So now I have these little pieces of vinyl that I cut out that are in the perfect shape of the palm. So this little flat part here is where I know the thumb goes. I think that's correct. Let me double check. Yeah. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put rubber contact cement on both sides of this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to be sandwiching this. I'm going to put this here and this here. And I'll just kind of like be squeezing them. And they'll make contact enough. They'll stick to the wire and stick to itself through the wire. Enough to hold it. They'll kind of cover all of this mess and sort of make it more smooth. But it's not just to cover the wire. It's also the vinyl holds the pocket, which is the next step. But one thing at a time. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to be attaching these palms. So I got my drop cloth here, my contact cement. Here's the other 2 wires. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're all going to get this palm treatment. Just like that. All right, so here they are, sort of with the vinyl attached. They're still drying a little bit. I'm pressing them. But what I've got done is I've taken these little pockets that I've made out of just little poly cotton that are interfaced. These little sleeves that I made, just a little tiny sleeve to accommodate the hand rod. And I've just marked here. I want the opening hole to be sort of facing out opposite of the thumb. So I've just marked on here on the hands where these are going to be. The hole should be just on the outside of the wires. And what I'm going to do is just attach these just using contact cement. So I'm just going to put a little here, 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 and attach it. So they'll be really well attached. So that's the next step. A little glue here, a little glue here, and then a little glue here, and a little glue here. I'll just let that get tacky, and I'll attach those. All right, so now we're at this stage. So now we have the wire hand, the vinyl palm, and the little pocket that's attached. And here's one of the hand rods, and you'll see that it just is able to slip into that little sleeve really nicely. That's being held there nice and strong. All right, so now what we have to do is insert these inside the foam hands, because these have to be enveloped in foam. And this is a tricky part, but well, it's not tricky, it's just time consuming sort of. And this I'm doing 4 hands. This is gonna use a lot of contact cement. But basically what we're gonna do is I have the foam. I'm going to put foam all the way around the edge. I just indicated one little part of the hand where I don't need the glue, and that's where the pocket is, because we're going to be pinching all this together, but not over the, we don't want the foam to cover the pocket. So I'm just going to put contact cement, and I'm not going to put contact cement on the bottom part either, but I'm just going to and on everything else, including all in between all the fingers. Yeah, make sure that we get really good in between every finger. So I'm just going to do this, cover. It's a lot, because it's going to end up being, with 4 hands, it's going to end up being 8. But hopefully when you're doing this, you're only doing that 1 puppet at a time. But like I said, I'm working on multiple Okos at the same time right now, because it's just easier to do things that way. It's just more time efficient to be able to do them on like a production line, so. Yeah, here, so I'm just covering this. Oh, there we are. There's the first one done. So I'm going to do that 7 more times. And then we'll be at the part where we're going to want to, yeah, insert these. Oof, that's a lot of glue. All right, so I think the glue's probably started to get tacky. So what I'm going to do is, we have to take these, we have to sandwich these very carefully. So foam, the wire, the foam. I'm going to make sure that the pocket is lined up with the little gap that we've made. It looks pretty good here. Yeah, that looks good. So now what we do is you kind of like pinch it to connect the foam. Yeah, that looks good. It's got to dry a bit more. I think it's still too wet. So obviously, one of the tricky parts is just making sure that the wire fingers stay in the right area, but it's not that hard. Just keep pinching around. Every little area you get sort of holds it. So you can kind of see how the hands are taking shape here with the foam. It doesn't have to be perfect, because this obviously is going all inside the fur. So just keep on pinching around the edges, and eventually the hands sort of take shape and becomes a little more stable. The more that you get sealed, the more stable the wire hand sort of becomes. It does get a little easier once you start getting some of the edges done. So I'm just going to keep pinching those up. There you go, until we have all of them done. There's 2 done. 2 hands, 2 more to go. So I'll just keep doing that. I'll get to it right away before the glue dries. And then we'll be ready for the next step, which is going to be to insert these into the hands, the fur hands, the skin. All right, so the hands are looking pretty good here. So as you can see, all the hands have the little pocket at the side. So now we are at the point where we're going to insert these into the fur. Now I've already turned this one, but I thought I'd show. These ones were all machine sewn, but I'm going to show you also how to hand sew them, I think, because I'm going to be doing that with a pair of gloves, but we'll get to that. But yeah, this was just one of the pattern pieces, which is a 4-finger hand, and this fingers are sewn into, and then it's slashed between the seams, and then it's trimmed. The seam is trimmed, and then it's turned. And I find the easiest way to turn actually is with the Sharpie sticks. What I do is I put one in the end of a finger, and then I push with the other end. So I'll just do that for all 4 of the fingers. Stick one pen in so it's stiff, and then I hold it, and then I just push the other end of a pen through my hand while I hold the fabric. It sort of just turns it inside out. Middle finger is the hard one for me. With the way I've designed it, it's the skinniest finger on Oko's hand for some reason. I don't know why. All right, so there it is. And then I can just pull it out, pull the fingers tight, and then pull the arm through. And I'll just do that by hand by just sort of like sticking my fingers in and pulling the fur. All right, now because these were machine sewn, you do get a seam sort of edge. Here, I wonder if I can fit my hand in here. Not really. No, not really. But basically, you get a bit of a, when you use the machine, you get a bit of a seam here, which you can kind of brush out to hide. You can hide it pretty well by just brushing and pulling a bunch of the fibers out. So it's not too bad. It's a nice thing about fur is you can kind of hide seams pretty well. I don't worry too much, but the thing is, these are going to be the hands with the hand rods, and the camera is never going to be zoomed in too closely to these hands. Now I am planning on making a pair of gloves, and those ones the camera will be fixated on more, because when the puppeteer gloves I use for close-up shots of the hands doing things, so the gloves are going to get the hand-sewn treatment around the tips, and I'll do that next. But the first thing we're going to do now, before we get to that, is put the hands in these hands. We're going to put the hands in the fur now. So this can be a little tricky, but basically you kind of have to narrow the wires of the hand in a little bit, and then just sort of like slowly, bit by bit, inch it in. This requires a little practice, and hopefully the hole in the side of your hand is big enough. I've done this many, many times, so I know that this is going to work, but it can just be a little tricky. So yeah, the first finger you're going to sort of guide in is the pinky. You want to make sure, just guide each finger to the appropriate point, and then just start working the fur over the foam. It's not easy. It's a little tricky, and it takes a little time because there's a lot of friction between the inside of the fur and the foam. There's nothing you can really do about that, but it will move if you just slowly wiggle it. That's looking pretty good. The first 3 fingers are looking pretty good. I can feel that. Yep. Just going in and pull this fur down a little bit. We'll be able to pull more of the hand in. There, now the thumb is in. And I'm just gonna like push. Yeah, and I'm gonna wiggle the thumb fur onto the foam hand. All right, how are we doing on the fingers here? So now I want to make sure pretty much that the fur is all the way down on the tips of the 3 fingers, which is good. They are now. All right, and that's pretty much in. You can kind of fan out the fingers a little bit too, and you can do a little more brushing if you want, but there you go. So that's good. So it's like I said, you see it takes a little wiggling here and there and feeling around, but you just got to like slowly guide it, and hopefully the foam hand that you've made with the wires is sturdy enough to withstand, because it does go through a bit of stress going through like that. Anyway, so now what we're going to do is, this is going to be sealed eventually, but first I want to work on the arms. I'm going to build the arms and put those in before because we want to be able to have access to here to attach. But what we're going to do first is, like I said, I'm going to show you those gloves. I've cut out a pair of gloves, and I'll show you how you can just hand stitch the seam if you want a nice smooth seam over the edge of the fingers. I'll show you quickly how to do that. All right, so we're gonna be working on the gloves, and like I said, when I was making the puppet hands, the ones that are gonna be accommodating the hand rods, I just machine sewed around the tips because they're not gonna be examined too closely. But like I said, these gloves are used for very close shots. All right. So yeah, we want to make sure these look as nice as we can. So I'm going to just start by adding just a few little pins around some of the major points, like the tips. And I'm going to make sure that I'm taking the fur and kind of pushing it inside, because we're going to be hand stitching all along the edge here. Now, it goes without saying that when I was cutting out this fur, I cut it from the back and used a sharp blade to just cut along. There's no seam allowance on this. See this part? See, basically, I machine stitched here. I machine stitched just a very short seam allowance up to about the wrist. So it's just this, the fingers basically that we're going to be sewing. I'll just add a few more pins here. We don't need too many. Just to make sure that things are staying aligned. Okay, and I'll add one here too. Okay, I'll try and do this quick. So right up here, I'm going to attach the thread. It's nice and strong. All right, so the thread's now secured. So what I'm going to do is, you just you keep pushing the fur on the inside, and you basically just attach the edges of these pattern pieces, and I like to sort of reinforce it as well. Constantly pushing in the fur fibers. Yeah, I'm just going to do this all the way around. It takes a little time. All right, so there we are. As you can see, like a few little knots. But yeah, there you are, just stitched very close to the edge of all of those. Now we'll turn everything. All right, now it's all turned. We'll just fluff it up a little bit here with the brush, clean it up. All right, so there we go. So as you can see, there's a big difference. I mean, this is a glove and this is the actual puppet, but you can see the puppet I sewed, and you get this seam along the edge here, which isn't that big of a deal. I don't mind it, because you can kind of hide that by brushing or picking at the seam a little bit. But if you really want to do your puppets with the seam totally covered up, as you can see here, let me put this on. All right, so there you are. So as you can see, it's like, I probably would trim this a little bit anyway. I'd probably trim this a little bit, but it just gives a more seamless edge to the hand. So if you really want to have a more seamless edge, then you just do that same principle that I just did on this glove with the hand of the puppet. But like I said, machine stitching is most of the time good enough for me, I think. I think that still looks pretty good. All right, I had shown this in a previous video. I think it was the last marionette workshop we did, the previous video. But this is the old arm. This is what Oko's arms used to look like, which is just like a tube of muslin that I created with little chambers that I put either marbles or beads. That just made sort of a kind of cartoony arm. But we're not doing that anymore. Now we're doing sort of an arm that bends only at the shoulder, elbow, and wrist. And to do that, we make these little bones. Now the arms, the legs could have these too, but I usually put these in the arms. But the arms are 12 inches long, they're a foot. So these bones are 6 inches long, and they just get attached with some cord. I like to do things nice and simple. All right, just like that. All right, so there's the inside of the arm. That's it. And then this part will be attached to the shoulder, and this I will tie. Here, let's pull it through now. All right, and then now this will be tricky. How am I going to get this cord through here? Basically, I want it to go through. This is going to be tricky. How am I going to do this? I wonder if I can just push it through. Hold on. Ugh, it's tough. Yeah, I want to tie the cord through the hand. I want to go through the wire. All right, scissors are through. Aha, there we go. It took a little work. I had to kind of like, force that through. But anyway, there we are. And that'll go through. All right, so there you are. So there is the arm attached to the wrist. Should move this off. All right, so now the next step is going to be to hand sew this hole closed in the hand. Yeah, so we're going to hand sew this now, and then we're going to be hand sewing around the pouch, the pocket, where the hand rod goes. But this is all going to be closed up, so that's the next step. Now we got the arm in there. See, now it's got that nice bend. Bends at the proper spots. And if you want, you can add extra padding around the arms as well, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. Yeah, but anyway, like I said, I'm going to be making more of these bones, and I use these wire hangers that I got at the dollar store. So I'm going to be making more of these bones, enough to supply what we need for the hands that we've made. I'll show you the hand sewing next of closing this up. All right, so I'm just sitting and doing quite a bit of hand sewing today, so that's just what's involved here. So here's 3 of the hands in 3 different stages of the sewing. Here's a complete one. As you can see, there is the little pocket there. It's been sewn all around. I'm going to show quickly how I do that. And that just accommodates nice and snugly the hand rod. So that one's done, and then here's a fully open one. And here I have one that's half done. So I've done one side. What I do is I hand sew the seam closed up until the pocket, and then this is when you have to like do one side. I usually do the top side and attach it to one edge of the pocket just with a little like slip stitch until I get to the end, and then I tie it off. And then I turn it around, and then I do the exact same thing, starting at this corner, moving to the pocket, and then I'll attach it to the top part of the pocket. So I'm at the stage now where I'm starting to attach the first side here. To one edge of the hand rod pocket. You can see you just catch the lip of one side of the pocket here. That's how I do it. And then I just pull down a little piece of the fur. There we are. Doesn't take long. I'll pick up the fur here, and then we're going to tie it off and then go to the other side. So now it's just to fasten this. All right. All right, so then I turn it over. Yep. And now I start in this corner, I move over here, and then I'm gonna start hand sewing this part of the fur to the pocket there to close it. All right, so here's the tricky part, because it does get a little tight. But yeah, you want to just keep on picking up the edge of the fur and then attaching it to the little lip of the hand rod pocket. All right, there we go. That should do it. Yeah, so there it is. And yeah, I usually just brush this a little bit to clean it up. Yep, there we go. There's another one done. Let me just test it with the hand rod. I'm sure it'll be fine. Yep, there we are. Nice and snug. So there we go. All right, I have one more to do. The next thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how I made these hand rods. They'll just be a quick little video. Let me just quickly show you how I made these because it's super simple. All right, so here's our pretty much completed arm, and yeah, so here are the hand rods that I make, and I need to repaint this black because this got sort of like covered in some talcum powder or something like that, which sort of discolored the glue, it seems, or something. I'm not quite sure what happened here, but anyway, yeah, there's lots of different ways to make hand rods, and you can find other videos on YouTube about how making hand rods specifically for puppets. But I wanted to find the easiest method, so here's my little secret. Here is, when I was at the dollar store, I found these barbecue skewers. Look at this, it's $1.50 for 8 in a pack. It's a lot. So I got 2 packs here just as backup. But this is what I use. They're these nice long metal skewers that have just a point at one end and then sort of a hook that fits nicely into a little hand pocket. So these work really well. So if you can get these at your dollar store, I recommend doing this. The handle is just a dowel. Basically, I got a dowel that felt comfortable for a grip, and I cut it to, looks like this is about 5 inches, a 5-inch handle, and I drilled holes into the dowel wide enough to fit the skewer, and then I used some resin epoxy, I think, to glue them in. And I painted all black, so that's it. So that's how I do my hand rods. And that's how I like to do Oko's hands. There's the completed arm with the bones. It bends at the right spots, the hands. And, you know, it's pretty snug. But I found another good way you can do is, what I do is I have like these orange pins. You can actually like get a long pin and you can pin right through the hand rod. And that usually like holds it a bit more too. Yeah, get a nice long pin, and yeah, if you can manage to pin right through the hand rod, that'll like make it a little more snug, but you don't have to do that. I like the option of being able to remove the hand rods because when I'm filming around the apartment with Oko, obviously I'm getting a lot of different angles. Sometimes it's beneficial to have the hand rods if I want his hands to be moving, but a lot of times his hands will just be stationary, and it's a really nice option to be able to just take out the hand rods nice and quick and easily, I find. But a lot of puppeteers will just build the hand rod right into the hand, and it'll just be built around that. So the hand rod would actually be secured on the inside, and then yeah, it would just be sewn up. And that, you know, that could be fine too. Like I said, I just like the flexibility. All right, well, there you go, guys. That's it. That's how I do my Oko arms, hands and arms, inside and out. So thank you for joining me on this workshop. Please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.